It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Anime Movie Podcast. We're your hosts, I'm Joe.
I'm Kat.
And today we are reviewing the new movie by Mamoru Hosoda, Belle. It just came out in theaters here in the United States. We went and saw it, and now we're giving our review, and we're going to do a non-spoiler and a spoiler, obviously, as we do it here on the AMP. And we got to see it in theaters. That's exciting. There's COVID happening all over the place here.
Still happening.
It's even worse. Now that everybody's been vaccinated, shit got worse. But we made it out. We trekked to the theater to see this anime movie for you. We're doing this for you. We're giving our thoughts and review.
So we've actually reviewed every other Mamoru Hosoda film, major film. And this one premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2021, July 15th or July 16th. I can't remember which. And then the U.S. premiere was in November at some kind of an anime something or other in New York City. And then it just came out in sort of like wider theatrical release on the 14th of January. I saw this film initially subtitled on an airplane on its way to Asia. And I was really excited because I didn't realize that a new Hosoda film had come out.
Yeah, I'd been hearing a lot about this movie, like in the past. Like, I feel like I've been hearing, like, oh, Belle's going to come out, Belle's coming out, Belle's coming out. Because I remember sending you the trailer when the trailer first dropped.
Yeah,
being
that was
like,
a
we got to
while
review
ago,
this.
though. Right?
Yeah, it seems like this has been going on for a long time. But it finally came out. We finally got to see it. And, what are your initial thoughts on Belle, the non-spoilery initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts on Belle is that Hosoda will not let go of this sort of social media alternate avatar world.
That is exactly what I thought when I first, the first scene of them in, so they have this virtual reality world called You. And as soon as I saw him launch into that, I was like, he will not let this go. How many times is he going to make this movie?
I wonder if this is it's just his thing. Now we're going to see more and more of him exploring it further. Or if he just doesn't feel like he's doing it well enough. If he feels like he just has to keep doing it until he gets it right.
Yeah. Like the Digimon movie, he was like, oh, no, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Summer Wars, he's like, no, still not right.
Although I think Summer Wars might have been it.
I think it might have been it too.
I thought that this film was visually stunning and it had a fantastic soundtrack.
Absolutely. The opening song in this movie is such a banger. And as soon as I was hearing it, I was like, oh, yeah, strap in. This is going to be, this song, it rules. And so much so that me and Kat vaguely got obsessed with the band that did it, which is called Millennium Parade. And we learned more facts about that band than this movie. I feel like we became more like a fan of Millennium Parade than Belle.
Yeah, and reading up on Millennium Parade, it's some kind of art collective from some artists who have fame elsewhere, and came together for this band that is you were the one who said it was the Gorillaz. Yeah,
I feel like Gorillaz, their claim to fame that it was an electronic animated band, but it was people from they had Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who's a rapper, and then they had the guy from Blur, I think was in it too. I'm pretty sure it was the guy from Blur. And then just a host of other people contributed to it. So as I was watching the music videos for Millennium Parade, I was like, oh, this is like Gorillaz. And then come to find out, reading up on them later, that it kind of is like Gorillaz.
Yeah, because they have the sort of whole animated story that goes with each of their songs. And some of those animated characters show up in Belle from there. So we were trying to figure out what the story is behind it. I wanted some story about how Hosoda had found this band or knew them or something and made them like form the collective, you know, as part of like making the music for Belle. And then they decided to come out with their own album. Because it seems like they only came out with an album last year as well.
Yeah, I think that the album came out February of 2021. And right now it's January 2022. So Hosoda had to have been in the know about what was going on with Millennium Parade in order to have them contribute stuff to the soundtrack. So
yeah, I mean, I wonder because it must have taken so long to make this film.
But I also think that they only actually contributed one song, and it's the first song.
It's the theme they did,
yeah.
and also the opening song.
Okay. Dude, that opening song is so good. Like I'll say this. I'll say that opening song writes a check that the rest of the movie can't cash.
I think you might be right about that.
Yeah.
Here are my thoughts on this film. Is that you're absolutely right that the opening builds it up and it's building up really, really well. And then it drops the ball and it slowly lets it roll for a super long time.
Yeah. Well, it's only a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. I mean, and then it kind of picks the ball up again, but you've almost lost your connection to the ball.
Yeah.
Like the momentum of this film is really strange. The pacing is unusual. There's a couple of things about it that if I didn't know that Hosoda, writer-director of this film, was a very experienced writer and director, I would have said that he needed another day at script school. You know, not like dialogue wise, but story structure wise. You know, I know that we've talked about how Miyazaki sometimes, starts a film without scripting it. And so sometimes there's some things that seem a little odd because they kind of do these like repo things where they're like, well, actually back then this happened too. It felt like there were a lot of things that were introduced at weird times that could have been introduced earlier to build up more to it. You know, and you have those moments in films where you're like, well, of course, because it's a movie, it's going to be that guy because he's already introduced. But this film like ignores all of those rules.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. There's a lot of like things just left hanging and you're like, well, wait, what was the significance of that? And like, who was that person? Like,
or like, why wasn't this brought in earlier so that I could have expected it or, you know, had some, you know, there's a lot of this film that is so good and I wanted it to be so good. But because it kind of drops the ball here and there, it's not as strong as it could be, even though it's the most visually stunning Hosoda film, in my opinion.
I think that, so there's two worlds. We should do like a non-spoilery synopsis, like of the story. So it follows this girl, Suzu, who's kind of like a mousy, like very shy, very quiet girl in the real world. But in the virtual world, which is called You, she's like a pop superstar sensation. And everyone's like obsessed with her, but she's trying to keep her identity hidden in the real world. And basically everybody on the planet is a part of this You sensation. And so I guess it's kind of like Facebook, Instagram type of thing.
Except, you know, everybody is anonymous until they are unveiled, which is this like horrible punishment in this world to become unveiled.
Yeah. And you know, honestly, I don't really know why. Like it's like, yeah, you messed up. Now you're unveiled. It's like nobody was really doing anything terrible in You, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everybody's Banksy in this world and doesn't want anybody to know who they are. And
yeah, well, also, I mean, like, if you couldn't tell from the title of the movie, it's like a retelling of Beauty and the Beast.
More like a reimagining.
Sort of. Yeah.
I mean, like
inspired by.
Ponyo is to the Little Mermaid as Belle is to Beauty and the Beast.
That is a great comparison. Yeah, so there's like a beast in You, and there's mystery surrounding the beast, and people are trying to unveil him and see what that person's motives are and why. I don't know what he did that was so bad in the You, but people think that he's a bad guy. I don't know.
And, when Suzu is choosing her name in the U, apparently Suzu means bell, like a ringling bell in Japanese. And then people are like, oh, Belle means beautiful in French, but that's, with an E added.
Yeah.
But just like, yeah, okay.
I feel like Hosoda is like clinging so hard to like the positives of the Matrix. Like when I see this like repeatedly from him, I'm like, dude, I think that we covered like in the Matrix like that this is bad. Or like you remember there's a movie that I love called Upgrade. Do you remember that scene in Upgrade? There's a scene where there's all these people that are in like this virtual reality world and they love it so much that they like just have IVs put into them.
Basically VR junkies.
Yeah, and they only want to live in the VR world because it's so much better than the real world. And like Hosoda has not gotten the like we shouldn't live in a VR world message yet. Like I think he's still like, no, it's gonna be cool, guys, when we live in the metaverse.
I mean, yeah, I agree in some ways, but then Summer Wars, there's definitely a big sort of threat of like what if everything was connected through this internet world and controlled by it, then if something hacked into this, we'd be fucked. It's the same, reason why you shouldn't have monopolies on anything, anywhere.
I would have liked this. I would have found it more interesting too if it was a part of the same cinematic universe as like Summer Wars.
I was just thinking that too.
Like I think that would have been a cool like connecting thing.
Like, wouldn't it be cool if he was building onto the idea instead of kind of redoing it?
Yeah.
Especially, like, I get it when he did it for Digimon, and then he kind of wanted to do it his own way for his own movie that he wrote and directed and didn't already have some kind of a fan base waiting for it or studios,
like it wasn't
directing
connected
it.
to some IP already.
Yeah, exactly. So I get that. But like, if you've already explored this idea, why not build on your universe, especially when Summer Wars was a very successful film?
Yeah.
Of course, this film's doing better than any Hosoda film
yeah.
financially has ever done. It's only opened in the U.S. and it's already his highest grossing film.
Well, I mean, critically, people like it's got a 94 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
On Metacritic, I think it's got an 83, which signifies quote unquote universal acclaim. IMDb, I think it's a 7.4 or something out of 10. So like it's well received.
Yeah.
But I think it's like one of his weakest movies. Like I would only put this above The Boy and the Beast.
Yeah.
Like
and Mirai, I think, but I didn't like Mirai that much.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Mirai.
Would you put it above Mirai?
I'd have to watch Mirai. I'd have to re-listen to our podcast episode. But yeah, here's the thing: is I think it looks better in the real world because it has that signature Hosoda like kind of flat matte look. And then when they're in the VR world, it's like a 3D-ish type of thing and everything is kind of like jittery. And I don't like that.
I didn't notice the jitters.
Well, it's like there's frames missing when they're moving. Like it's it kind of looks, I mean, it looks like all of the anime movies that try to incorporate that CGI. Like, I don't think it looks great. I prefer the animation in Summer Wars, to be honest. Like, it does have some of that like red outlining too that Hosoda does in his virtual world.
A little bit. And what I notice is that when Belle is in the virtual world, she doesn't tend to have it. Or it's very subtle, but a lot of the other characters do, which I don't know if there's something to that. There's also, I know when Hosoda was around for the Academy Awards, he met Jin Kim, who does a lot of character designs for a lot of like DreamWorks and Pixar and Disney films. And apparently Hosoda was a big fan of his, and they talked at that time about getting together and doing a project. And Jin Kim got on to this one. So he did the character designs for Belle.
Yeah, I think that they met when he was at the Academy Awards for Mirai.
Yes.
Right? Do you think this is going to get nominated for an Academy Award?
I think it's got to, based on the critical acclaim that it's gotten. I don't know how successful it'll be in getting it. But I'd be curious to know if he did write this as he went along. because it really feels like that sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of weaknesses in the story. Like
Yeah.
there's just like a lot of random things happening towards the end when you're like, oh, what's the mystery of all of this? And then it's just like, it's all random. Which, I mean, in the real world, like that makes total sense and like that's whatever. But if we're telling a story that you want to be compelled by,
Yeah, and
you want to have connections, I think.
and it makes me wonder if, you know, does this count as like, oh, I wanted to make it feel more real and less like a movie by bringing this stuff up that wasn't as well motivated in like movie world. So is he kind of like playing with the format to make it feel more real, which is kind of ironic since these people are like living in this non-real world, or is this just bad movie writing?
Yeah, I don't know, because like halfway through the movie, in my head, I had some like internal predictions about like who is who in the digital world, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I think that this person's that, and I think that that person's this, and then when people are unveiled, I was like, oh, I was way off. Like I
And
had
you're
no
usually
idea.
very good at that.
Yeah,
too.
well, I mean, like that's why I'm like, this is completely different storytelling because everything was just random. I felt like.
Some of it was definitely like that.
And then there's some people that don't get unveiled, and I was like, well, I want to know who that person is. Like, we're like, what's the story behind that person? But yeah, I don't know. It was a very, I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, I understand that.
Did you feel this way? Because this is the second time you saw it when you saw it in theaters with me.
Yeah, and I did have some of these thoughts, and I really wanted to talk about it with you. So I'm really glad that we got to go see it together. Because when I was on the plane, I was like, I want to talk about this so much. But I saw the subtitled version.
Yeah.
And one thing that I loved about the subtitled versus the dubbed is that the music stays just as good. Like they somehow found somebody's voice that managed to mimic the Japanese singing so well and so like goosebump worthy. So I was very impressed the way that kind of carried over so beautifully. Because sometimes you listen to the dub and they'll do the English version of a song and you're like, those aren't good lyrics, you know. And it didn't feel like that at all. But I do think I preferred my airplane experience of it.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say we don't really often get to do this because we usually just watch the dub. Now, like you can like compare and contrast. Like, was there any major differences that you saw between the sub and the dub?
There were some voices that were a little bit different. And I don't know if we want to talk about voice acting much here.
Yeah, I mean we can. Yeah.
Yeah. But there were just a couple of characters that I felt like their voices were better in Japanese. And of course, I don't understand Japanese, so I'm always missing something. But I felt in the dub, Ruka, who's kind of a supporting character, and Suzu, the main character, have these weirdly similar voices, like kind of odd female voices that are like pretty low in register, and maybe a tiny bit nasal or muffled.
Yeah, it's kind of like whispery.
Yeah, and they both had that.
Yeah.
And in the Japanese version, Ruka's really popular and she's got this like really pretty voice compared to the kind of more sullen, more low register that Suzu had, which I think worked for the characters. And I thought it was really odd to kind of give them a really similar voice pattern in this when they're such different characters.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see the sub.
Yeah.
So I can't really comment. But yeah, I did find that Suzu's voice was like very whispery and kind of, I don't know, a little annoying to me. Like, maybe it was just like her character was annoying because of how incredibly shy she was.
Yeah.
But then, like you were saying, like Ruka she was supposed to be like the most popular girl, but she was also like really shy as well in the telling of the story.
Yeah, and I think there is a certain shyness to Japanese culture, whereas Americans are a lot more, brash and outspoken. Of course, this can range person to person. We're all individuals, but generally speaking, So I think that sometimes when we see that in a Japanese film, to us, it's like, why are they so shy? You know, and I don't know if it'll be a little bit more of a cultural norm in Japan. But I have to say that in both the sub and the dub, Suzu was irritating.
Okay. What about Shinobu? Because I thought that he was voiced by Manny Jacinto, who we're a fan of from The Good Place. I thought that he was just like deadpan as hell. Like it sounded like he just like phoned it in super hard. Was he like that in the subtitle?
Yeah, he was like that in the subtitle too.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, that's a hard one to ADR for because he spoke in these very short, quick sentences.
Yeah.
And Joe recently introduced me to We Bear Bears, and the polar bear character is super deadpan.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a little bit of the polar bear character.
Ice Bear.
Ice Bear.
Dimitri Martin.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this film could have done more with the characters it establishes to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And done a little less of introducing a ton of characters kind of like midway through. It was odd. And we'll talk about some of the details of that more in the actual spoiler section.
Yeah. Which, should we just get to that?
Yeah. Do you want
Spoiler
to, how amped are you about this?
I'm like medium amped. Like
Amp
I'm in
of
the middle.
uncertainty?
Yeah, I'm very, like I said earlier, like I don't know how to feel about it necessarily. Yeah. Like I thought that I had like as I was watching, I had a number, but then I was like thinking about it a bit more, and then I don't know. I'm confused, amped. How about you?
I'm kind of similar because there's certain things about it that I love, and I wanted to love it more, and I think it was possible to make this an incredibly strong film throughout, and I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But I think that it has such strong positives that I can't have any kind of negative feelings about it, except that I resent that it's not as good as I thought it could be.
Yeah. Nothing in this movie is as good as that opening song. I'll warn everybody. Nothing is. That opening song. Whew, it's a heater. All right, let's go to Spoilerville.
All right, let's do it.
They wouldn't spoil this, right?
Oh,
you
God,
can't spoil this.
spoilers,
Right?
don't
spoil
spoil
this.
Spoiler talk, anime movie podcast, spoiler talk.
Okay. I almost want to run through and just talk about everything that kind of wasn't introduced early enough or kind of had this like repo where, you know,
What do you mean by repo?
it's like a repositioning, I think is what it's short for. But in role-playing games, there's a certain rule that allows you to be like, okay, here's a situation that happened 2 days ago that hasn't been introduced to gameplay yet, which I'm going to tell you about. And now we're going to play off of that being reality.
Okay.
So it's basically a way to go back in storyland and be like, okay, so this also happened.
Okay.
So now that's relevant to now instead of introducing it earlier or, you know, sort of sequentially.
Okay.
I think what bugged me the most is that, okay, so singing is such a huge part of this because the fact that Suzu goes in, becomes this like pop star, and she's able to reclaim the voice that she's lost after all of these years of sadness with her mom dying.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't able to sing before, but now with the anonymity, she's able to, and people love it. And she's, you know, blowing up in popularity. Now, number one, I do not understand how her mom died in the situation that she died in.
I think she drowned or fell off a waterfall.
Well, okay.
It's off screen. We don't see her mom die.
Yeah, and her mom puts on a life jacket and somehow manages to get a child from the center median in this raging river to the side for people to collect her. And then the mom's got like, what did the mom do? Get to the median and fucking chuck this girl to the shore? Like, I don't buy that death.
Yeah.
And I think that if she's wearing a life jacket, that she could have gone a little further downstream and gotten to the shore. You know, unless she did just like fucking hit her head on something. But they didn't show sharp rocks or anything they didn't show any hazards that made me think, okay, that's why the mom died.
Yeah. Yeah, and I forgot about the life vest because she swims to the median, saves the kid. So that means she had to have swam back to the shore.
How did the kid get to the shore and she didn't?
Yeah.
You know, like it feels like there's little scenes missing almost.
I think that once she got back to the shore, a bear quickly ran, mauled her. That was that.
And then, you know, they did show that as Suzu's growing up, that her and her mom did like GarageBand arrangements on the iPhone, but we don't see them really sing together. We don't get the idea that she is a singer. We get the idea that she shared, you know, she played on GarageBand with her mom.
Yeah.
And so then when she's unable to sing, you're like, oh, I guess that's something like it wasn't super clear that that's something she did with her mom, and her mom dying made her lose her voice, because the only time we see her kind of try is on her way home from school that day. She looks really sad, so you can't tell if her voice is breaking because she's really sad at that moment. You don't get the idea that, oh, she always has a problem with this, especially when midway through the movie they introduce this choir of older ladies. And towards the end of the movie, they show a picture really briefly of her mom with those choir ladies. And during the choir thing, she's just hiding under a table, but she's still singing with the choir. So it's like, has she lost the voice? And also, why didn't you like show the choir ladies, you know, with the mom earlier on, so that when they came up, we know that this is associated with her mom? Or like a bunch of stuff about that bugged me.
I think with the choir ladies, that first scene, they do mention that like, oh, you're just like your mom, and like your mom used to do this. But yeah, I didn't understand. Like, it was so weird that she quote unquote lost her voice. I thought it was like some kind of physical ailment or something that she couldn't sing anymore. But then she's in the choir room, and I thought that like so in the U, it's like supposed to make you realize your potential or something, and it's got biometric scans, which is a whole other thing. Like, you should not be putting onto the internet, I feel like. But that's just conspiracy theory, Joe. But yeah, so I thought it was like, oh, she can sing in the virtual reality world because she's not hindered by her physical ailment, which makes her not able to sing. But then later on, she like sings in person, and I was like, oh, so it was just like a confidence thing or a sadness thing.
Yeah, I think I would have wanted to see her with the choir ladies before we see her in You. Because I think I would have wanted, you know, the information about the mom and her having the shyness with the singing or not singing. Mm-hmm. You know, if it's about anonymity being what makes her able to sing, why wasn't she able to sing alone walking home from school?
Yeah.
What's more anonymous, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah, that was a weird choice that the movie made. My thing was more about like, so halfway through the movie, there's a scene where we see Kamise, the guy, the kayak guy.
I think you said Kamishin.
We see him practicing his kayaking, and he's like practicing alone. And we've been introduced to the Beast in the U at this point. And he like is an MMA fighter, and he trains alone, and he lives like alone in this castle. And Kamishin is the only person in this kayaking group. He's always training alone, but he's like a super, super successful kayaker. And the Beast in the U is a super, super successful mixed martial artist or something. So I was like, okay, Kamishin is the Beast. I thought that that's what it was. And so in the real world, Suzu has a crush on Shinobu. And Shinobu is like this, I'm going to protect you person. I thought that Shinobu was going to be Justin in the U, who is like that version of Gaston, who's like, we need to kill the Beast or whatever. We need to unveil the Beast. So I thought that that's what was going on. And then when everyone's unveiled, like, number one, Justin never gets unveiled. We never know who he is.
He
like,
just loses all his sponsorship.
Yeah, that's like he's running around trying to unveil the Beast and never does. And then when Belle unveils herself, it's like, okay, it's that. And then the Beast gets unveiled, and it's just some random kid across the country that I was like, it's like it's just weird. Like I felt like there was all of these things in place of like, oh, this is where you can see how this is happening.
Yeah. Shinobu could have been introduced much earlier. The idea of them having a long history together, or seeing him there when her mom died and saying, I will protect you. All of that could have been much earlier, but instead it's kind of talked about and then kind of later shown in a flashback as an additional flashback when we've already flashed back to that time. And that's what's weird to me about those moments, that it feels like, oh, you know what, actually I'm also going to add here is this. And then you see it later on.
Oh, remember that flashback? There's more to that flashback.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, fucking all right. But it doesn't really like add much to the movie.
No, it doesn't. And I would like it more if it did add something to the movie, because I like the idea of like we keep seeing a little bit more of the flashbacks. It's kind of like getting to know somebody. You hear a little bit of their story, and then sometimes you dive a little deeper and you dive a little deeper. And that works to kind of build your relationship with that person. But yeah, in this, I was like, what are we adding?
Yeah. And then the unveiling of the beast as just like a random kid across the country who is he's in an abusive household. Like his father abuses him, and he's got a little brother who the dad also abuses. I was like, well, what's the love story here? Like a child abuse love story? Like, because then Suzu is like, we need to find out where this kid lives and save him. And so now there's this whole other side quest at the end of the movie.
Yeah, everything becomes about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels like it's making its way towards a love story, but then she's like, but it was a child's eyes. And then you're like, oh yeah, this just got a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
Because it was building towards a love story. It felt like it was.
That's what I was thinking. And then
then it's like, wait, he's too young and he's being really badly abused. And I think there's a sweetness in the idea that, sort of through social media, strangers might find each other and be able to protect each other from these terrible things that they're otherwise helpless against. Mm-hmm. Lovely. But I don't know. I think you're right. Just that it feels like a random side quest at the end of the film, and then that's what the whole film becomes about, or that's what it was supposed to be about the whole time. And it kind of felt like, well, what about these other characters that kind of came up?
Yeah. And also, like, what made Belle fall for the beast in the U? Like, he interrupts her concert and she's like, who's that? And they're like, they call him the dragon, but we're going to call him the beast the rest of the movie. And then so like Justin, who is Gaston, is like chasing him. He's like, we got to catch that guy. Number one, like, I don't know what the beast does that makes him like public enemy number one in this world. Like, it seems like he's just really good at being an MMA fighter.
It does seem a bit like
and then he like just shows up at a concert, and then people are like, we gotta fucking unveil this guy. And then the rest of the movie is like a chase for him. Like, why?
Yeah, I think that could have been built up more and felt more motivated, for sure. And then you also are like, well, why does she care? Or why is she super into this? And then a few meetings later, then he saves her in this situation, and then you're like, okay, like there's some trauma bonding there now, but like, where was it before?
Yeah.
And also
there might be something there that wasn't there before.
Oh, very nice. When I watched Magic Mike.
Okay. Excited to see where this goes.
I felt that the movie failed as soon as it decided that it was a movie. That it had to be
instead of being just a softcore pornography.
Yes.
It would have been better served as that.
With, just some fun choreography. And I think that what it really had going for it was that fun, I was going to say pornography, but I don't mean it. That fun choreography and that high energy stuff, and, this sort of like musical thing. And I think that I had a little bit of that feeling when this stopped being a fun musical with this pop diva at the center of it. And I understand that it needed to move on to be about these like bigger social justice kind of issues. But I think we needed a little bit more of that fun.
Yeah.
The fun of experiencing fame, and because it felt like we had that for a second. And then, that's to me when it kind of drops the ball and just kind of like lets it roll on the floor for a while, where there's a lot of scenes that go a bit slow. There's a lot of sadness. And I just wanted a little bit more juxtaposition between her world in the real world and her world in the virtual world, because she's about to have her first concert. It's like she's just been discovered and she's about to have her concert, and the concert gets disrupted. But like, I wanted that concert disrupted midway through another song.
Yeah.
So I could have enjoyed the crowd enjoying her,
Yeah, because the concert gets interrupted like while she's swimming with dolphins and she hasn't even started singing yet, and then the beast shows up.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there could have been a song there. There
And
could have been
we've
another
only-
pop mega hit.
And I wanted that. And I
Yeah,
wanted
so
to
did
hear
I.
that. I wanted, especially because, later, Ruka and, what is his name?
Kamishine?
Kamishine. They're like, what kind of music do you like? And one of them's like, I like Belle. Like what, her 1.5 songs
Yeah.
that she's barely even sung? Like
Yeah.
she doesn't have a career yet. She's just been found. And I just wanted more because I wanted to feel more motivated that she was this huge pop star.
I also wanted to learn more about the other pop star that was in the U. I forget
Yeah.
her name, but she's like trashing Belle. She's like, yeah, Belle's blah, blah, blah. She's a nobody. Everybody should stick with me. And I was like, well, who are you? Like at the end of the movie, after Belle unveils herself to be Suzu, who's just like some kind of random schoolgirl, she says something like, she's just a random schoolgirl like me. It's like, it would have been nice to like see her like maybe team up with Belle at the end of it.
Or let's say if that girl is a random schoolgirl, maybe she knew the kid that was being hurt, and ended up being the thing that led Suzu to finding him. And so they were these kind of like rivals, and there was this like jealousy, and then it's kind of like, you know what, forget this. This isn't important. What's important is, helping these kids.
Yeah, there's something bigger than like pop fame in a virtual world.
Yeah. And that would have been a lovely message.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they were able to find the kids off of zero information,
Yeah, that was really stretching it.
that was a big stretch.
Yeah. I mean, they see like a apartment building in the back and someone's like, "Oh, I used to work there or work around there. I remember those."
It was Kamishine had
A tournament or something,
yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, okay, well, let's search in that vicinity." And they're like, "Well, we don't know anything." And then she's like, "Well, some other, I think Ruka's like, oh, I know that apartment building." It's like, this is very coincidental.
They're like, how are we going to get her all the way to that part of Tokyo? Like it would take too long to drive. There aren't any flights anymore. It's like, so we'll put her on a train. So there's like the stakes for 5 seconds trying to figure that out. And then Suzu just shows up in the rain and it's just running up and down streets. And one of the kids happens to be outside.
Yeah. And why wouldn't you send an adult with her? Like, you saw the dad like abusing children.
Yeah,
He has
like-
no qualms about beating up kids. And they're like, let's send another kid. And so like she finally gets there. She randomly comes across the kid and he's like, "Belle, is that you?" Because she unveils herself, and then they like make a connection on the internet before this. And so he comes running out. Then the other kid, that's the beast, he comes running out. It's like, well, where's this abusive dad? I thought that the abusive dad was like keeping them like as shut-ins or something. And then so they're hugging in the rain, and then the abusive dad comes out and he's like, "Who the hell are you? Everybody get inside." And then he's about to punch Suzu, and she just stares at him until he falls on his ass and decides he's like afraid of a little girl.
I was trying to think of what's going on in that scene, and I think that part of it is that she's standing up to him.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we see the kids in that
Oh, yeah.
situation,
They're, like,
they're always cowering.
Yeah.
And maybe it's kind of like making that connection and looking in her eyes and realizing that this stranger has come from all this way because you've lost your shit. Like, you're no longer in control of what you do anymore. And it's like, oh, the shame is suddenly coming upon him, and he's realizing what he's done and what he's become, that he's the beast,
But he doesn't Like, he doesn't know that she came from all that way. He just sees some random girl hugging his son. He's like, I'll fucking beat the shit out of you. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the randomness of it all.
Yeah. And I think that I think that some of that stuff could have been strung together more to make it feel less random. And I would have been okay if the movie took some liberties. I think that, you're taking this huge liberty saying that she's able to find this kid.
Yeah.
And where he lives based off of information where it's like, zoom into the window.
Yeah.
Let's CSI reconfigure that
Yeah, and
image.
somehow when they zoom in, the image gets clearer. Get the fuck out of here.
It goes from HD to 4K as they zoom in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm willing to buy that. I'm willing to buy like that she can find them based off of this flimsy information and like happens to run across the kid or whatever.
Yeah.
But then like everything else is just so random and weird, and I just wish that there was more connection. It was like there was a lot of Chekhov's guns throughout this movie that just stayed up on the shelf and never get used.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things like, there are some sort of fairy-like creatures who I guess are AI as part of
Yeah, they're like the
Beast's
beasts,
castle.
like Lumiere and Mrs. Potts and all that.
Basically, yeah, and they have a couple of phrases that are kind of like, I have something to show you. It's just for you, or something, and they kind of like lead the way to showing where this massive castle is. By the way, what is that castle? How does he get that castle? Why does
no
he
idea.
have it?
I have no idea.
And are there other AI? Like, I kind of wanted to know more about the AI and see their relationship to the Beast and understand why he had them.
Yeah, and I wanted to know more about that angel that follows him that I
That's
thought
his,
was
that's
like,
his little brother.
oh, that's his little brother. Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, the little, like, the angel, like, was dying, so I thought it was, like, the rose in, like, the Disney Beauty and the Beast that, you know, he has a certain amount of time to find true love before the rose, the last petal falls.
Yeah.
I thought that the angel AI, or the angel was supposed to be like that because it seemed like its time was running out and it was, like, laying on the ground and dying and stuff.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to understand more about sort of like the Beast's agency in that world and what his goals were in that world? So you see a bit more of her side and his side, and
Yeah, I just didn't know what he was doing that was so bad.
yeah.
Like in Summer Wars, the virus thing, like, you know what that's doing. It's bad. It's like affecting the real world. It's like causing some kind of like terrorist stuff where it's affecting traffic lights and emergency services and shutting off electric and all that shit. But like the Beast, as far as we've seen, is just an MMA fighter, and then it interrupted a concert.
He does seem to try and keep to himself.
Yeah, like he's in a secluded castle.
I guess I feel like it's trying to do this like hurt people, that this kid is getting hurt, so he's fucking shit up in this world because he doesn't have control in his own world and he's being victimized, so he's victimizing in the world.
Yeah.
But maybe they didn't want to show that because then that would make you not want to like root for him as much.
I just would have liked to have seen another instance of the Beast ruining something.
Yeah.
Like, because the only one we have is the concert, and it gets like snuffed out really quick. Like, he doesn't even have a chance to really fuck anything up,
Yeah.
aside from just like interrupting, and everybody's like, oh, it's the Beast. It's...
And I didn't get to hear her other song.
I know. Well, it did fuck that up.
Yeah.
It did fuck up like a potential other pop banger that we could have enjoyed.
Exactly.
You know what? Yeah, all right. Fuck the Beast. If it was anything like that first song, you ruined it.
I also had the general reaction of what is with Hosoda and his fucking whales.
Right? Wasn't the
In-
whale in Summer Wars too?
Yeah, the two whales that are kind of like the
gods of the digital world.
yeah, and there were two in Summer Wars and there were three in this one, and he does not even bother explaining them or mentioning them. And maybe it's a callback to Summer Wars, although the whole fucking thing feels like a callback to Summer Wars. I don't know if you need one individual whale to do it.
Well, that's why I thought it would have been better if it was like the Summer Wars world, like because it's
And
so
maybe
similar.
it is.
It might
and
be.
we're supposed to know that because of the whales.
That's what I mean. It just would have made sense because of the whales is the callback of all callbacks. Like
Yeah.
that was Summer War's thing. And also, I just feel like the ending took forever. Like when when they were talking to Kay and his little brother on the webcam, and they're like getting abused by their father, and he's like, "Don't talk to me." And then she sings that song in the digital world, unveils herself. Number one, I felt like that song was so long. And then they come back, and then Kay and the little brother are like, "Wait, is that really you, Belle?" Like, I thought from that moment on, like, it just dragged really hard for me.
There's an airplane going like directly above my apartment.
Yeah.
In case you can hear that. Yeah, they should have split that song time in half
Yeah.
and had the other half of that time for that pop banger that
Yeah,
we
that
missed.
the beast interrupted.
And he could have interrupted it halfway through the song.
And then I've been like, I wish I would have heard more of that song.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted, yeah.
Then I would have felt justified and like, we gotta get this fucking guy. Instead, she was just dancing with some dolphins or something. Who gives a shit about that? What a lame concert.
I also think it's funny that, they talk so much about how Ruka is so popular and she's the prettiest. And I guess they kind of make it sound like part of the reason why Belle, the avatar, was so pretty is because Suzu was in a picture next to Ruka, because it looks a lot like Ruka but has the freckles of Suzu. And I guess that's why they did the whole she's so pretty thing, because it doesn't really come up much in any other way. But she also she's in band and plays the saxophone, which just seems like the least pretty popular girl thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Like, what's going on in schools in Japan? like she's dancing all goofy and playing the saxophone. Like, I would have never.
I want to be her.
Yeah, I would have never been like, that's the one right there. Like, band people are known for like being band geeks.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was odd to me. But I guess they tried to make it so that you're at this fair of clubs,
Yeah.
so that you get introduced.
Also, why wouldn't anyone join the kayak club?
It's a great question. They have a great river, it looked like.
Yeah, and that kid that's the head of the kayak club is like nationally recognized as one of the best kayakers. Like, why wouldn't you want to I don't know, be under his tutelage? Like, I was in Baltimore, we have a specific type of bowling called duck pin bowling. I was in a duck pin bowling club in my high school, and there was like 20 people. Like, that's the lamest club that you could think of. And this kid's like kayaking. I don't know. Like, why? But also, I think when we see Suzu creating her avatar in the U, she puts up a picture of, it's like a group shot, but it looks like the U identifies her.
Yeah.
Like, it's got a bunch of like blue squares around other faces, but it locks onto Suzu and it has a yellow square. So it's like, why would you think that it's like Ruka? It locked onto you.
Yeah, and I only mention it because later she was like, I think it actually thought that I was Ruka. Or maybe that was trying to highlight
Her lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence, yeah.
Yeah.
That something about her couldn't be that beautiful and come out that, beautifully in this world. To be fair, everybody else is like these like chibi.
Dude, that's what I was about to say. Like, everybody else's avatar is like this stupid squirrel and stuff.
She's this absolute babe.
Yeah, she's like the only humanoid person aside from the other pop star. Everybody else is like a squirrel or like some kind of fairy or weird bear or
And to
something.
be fair, there's nothing in real life that would make you think like, there's something about this person that's just so beautiful from the inside too. Because I mean, we never really get much of an explanation about their dog that has a stump
Yeah.
either. But that dog looks real sad all the time. All the time. And Suzu looks she's either sad or embarrassed
Yeah.
all the time and is a dick to her dad
Yeah.
constantly.
I don't understand why.
It kind of suggests that her mom died like 9 or 10 years ago. And I'm not saying you ever get over a parent's death, but I think after several years, you might start being less of a dick to your only parent who's just trying to like feed you and just like fucking get by, and like they lost a spouse.
Yeah.
I just feel like, and maybe it's because she's becoming a teenager, and so they kind of suggested that she's just been doing it forever, and this poor man.
Yeah. Like, we haven't seen any kind of hint of like him being mean at all or anything.
No.
He's just like, hey, Susie, you want to get dinner? What do you want to do? You want to go do this? And she's like, no! And like runs into her room. It's like, why?
She's like, nothing with you. No, don't want it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we never see her like help a bird with a broken wing or anything. Like, we don't see her do anything on some ethical or moral level that makes you go like, oh, she's such a beautiful person.
Yeah.
She just feels sorry for herself all the time. So I think it's a little bit confusing that Belle was such a babe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Ruka is in the U.
Yeah.
We see her later on
Playing her saxophone
in the virtual world. So like, why would Suzu think that, like, oh, they definitely think I'm Ruka. It's like, Ruka already exists in this world, dude. Like, it's not like she's got her dumb fairy that plays saxophone.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like with the kayaking, it felt like maybe that should have come up in the story as well. I mean, they kind of use it as a vehicle to get Ruka to kind of admit her feelings for Kamishine.
Yeah.
And that scene's actually pretty funny. There's some entertaining moments with that. But like,
there are also a couple of scenes where the image is static for so long. Like I was in the theater, I hit Kat in the arm. I was like, I think the movie froze. Like it's like 10 seconds of a frozen image.
Yeah, there were a couple of moments like that, and they used it to an effect. At that moment when you have Ruka like burying her hands or her head in her hands, and there's all this action happening off screen, and she like does not move, and it's to comedic effect. But there were a couple of times where it's like,
yeah, there's a scene where
wow, you really didn't want to animate this.
Yeah, there's a scene where Justin's questioning Belle, and it's like so long that it's frozen. Like I legitimately thought that something was wrong with the movie. Like I looked back at the projector to be like, did the guy leave?
But like, why didn't somebody like give something to Kamishine to go kayak to somebody else, or like find through a network or something to be able to find these kids? Like there's just something that I feel like was missing that could have kind of brought all of this together and motivate more being able to find where those kids were.
Yeah, he could have kayaked Suzu to their location or something.
Well, or like gave a note to like kayaked a note to somewhere that got passed along, and he did this kind of like analog version of social media to be able to like network and find these kids, something like that.
Yeah, it just it's just like his attribute. Yeah, I kayak. I'm the kayak guy.
Yeah.
And he like plays no role in the movie aside from like being Ruka's crush, and like why that story didn't need to exist.
No, the whole movie really doesn't change if Ruka and they're just not there. And I feel like the story almost doesn't change when like if Shinobu disappeared either.
Yeah.
Like there's so many characters that could have just not been in this movie and it wouldn't have mattered. And actually, you kind of do need her sort of sidekick character who's also producing the music, which they don't go into very much.
Well, she's also like her PR, like her
they could have done more of that, again, building up more of that like pop star thing and how that whole system works.
Yeah, that girl with the glasses. I think her name is Hiro.
Hiro-chan?
Yeah.
Hiro.
She was so annoying to me. Like as annoying as I thought Suzu was, I thought the Hiro was even more annoying.
I remember when we were watching the movie and Hiro was throwing a fit about the potential unveiling of Suzu to endear her to these kids, and Shinobu was like, you need to show your true self in order for them to trust you.
Yeah.
and Hero's like losing her shit, and I just looked over at you, and you were just like, why? To
Yeah.
the screen, like we're in this really animated way.
Well, because Hero's just trashing like her best friend. She's like, you don't want to go back to the life that you had before you were Belle. You were sad and lonely and nobody liked
Crying
you.
all the time.
I was like,
And I was also thinking, none of that's changed.
yeah.
Because we haven't given the time for that to breathe, that
Yeah.
part of the story at all.
Well, it's like she has gained that confidence now that she realizes like, hey, I can do this in a virtual world. Maybe I can do it in the real world. But like we see her in the real world and she's still just as sad, just as lonely, just as shy. And like even Hero is like, yeah, you're just some mousy girl. Like no one would ever expect that you're some country bumpkin mousy girl. And it's like, geez, dude, like take it easy. This is your friend.
And there's this moment where like Shinobu just across traffic from Suzu is like, you're Belle, right?
Yeah. How did he figure that out?
And Suzu like loses her mind.
Yeah.
That was odd to me.
Yeah. We don't not understand like how he figured it out.
And like, why didn't Shinobu go with her in the end? And I guess the whole idea is like he feels like he doesn't need to protect her anymore because she's finally like stepped into her own or proved that she has her own agency to this dude. I don't know. But like, wouldn't it have been nice if he'd be like, hey, I don't need to protect you anymore, but let's go protect these kids together.
Yeah, I was going to say he could go with her and see her stand up to the father and like not act and be like, oh, okay, I don't need to
Yeah.
protect you anymore. I saw like your courage. Like he doesn't even see her courage. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like it was an intentional misdirect with the kayak guy and Shinobu. And it led to like just this random other story with Kay and his little brother being abused. And I think I like the story that I wrote in my head better than what they did.
I like the story you wrote in your head better too.
Yeah. Like it just feels like everything would have been connected and it would have been like, I guess that not everything needs to like tie a bow on it, everything and have like this neat, tidy ending. But I think that all of the stuff that they were hinting at and directing the story towards, and then to swerve it in such a direction that leaves a lot of questions to be asked, it's just like very unsatisfying.
I agree. I think that's a great way to put it, is that there were some big holes that leave it to be less than satisfying. It could have been a much more satisfying film. But unlike some of Hosoda's previous films, this one just had some really visually beautiful scenes, especially in the sort of virtual world.
Mm-hmm.
There were very uncharacteristically Hosoda like sparkles and explosions and like just cool stuff to look at that I thought was so great. And Belle's character design I thought was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Loved looking at her, loved looking at the outfits. There was this kind of extravaganza going on that had this Baz Luhrmann feel to it, where it's these bright colors and musical and all of that, but I wanted a little bit more of that.
Yeah, there's also even some scenes towards the end when I think it's like everyone's wondering where Belle is because after her concert got interrupted, she like went under incognito and like underground or whatever. And they're like, what's going on with Belle? There's all these like news stories in the U. And it looked like there was like fan art of Belle that looked very manga-like. And I was like, even that looked really cool.
Yeah.
And then when she's unveiling herself and they show all of the other art and all of these, I guess, just like alternate versions of her and other outfits that she had that all looked very cool too. So I think that like, yeah, the Belle design was really cool. I thought the Beast design was cool, but they said that he has like bruises on his back, but it was just like on his cape. And like, how would you identify those?
How would you know
bruises?
they're bruises? Yeah.
Like they were like
They really had to say that in order for that to be clear. at all.
Yeah.
And I guess that was partly the misdirect to the tattoo artist or whatever, and I didn't need that. I
Yeah,
need some
that
of
led to
these-
nothing.
Yeah.
And it was just like he's not even a good artist. Like his ex girlfriend is on TMZ or whatever. Like he's
Yeah.
not even a good artist. He just did those tattoos because he liked the Beast and the U. It's like, so the Beast has all of these fans. Like even the kids that they're interviewing on the TV show are like, I think the Beast is really cool. I think the Beast is awesome. Like, why is he vilified in the world? It made no sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you.
Frustration abound.
Do you think this would have been better as a TV series?
No.
Okay.
Do you?
I think it could have been. I think with the number of people and mysteries they try and throw at this, you could have spent more time learning about the Beast, learning about what he does in this world, more time about the relationship between him and Belle, to kind of be rooting for that or not be rooting for it, or to have more time to want to know who he is. I never felt like I cared about his identity. I didn't want to know.
I cared about his identity when I thought it was somebody connected to Suzu.
Right.
But then when it wasn't, I was like, oh, now I don't care. I think the reason why I don't think it would work well as a TV series is because based on what we were given, I don't have any faith for them to expound on the story in a meaningful way that I would care about. So I wouldn't want to see more of this. Like the 2 hours was a little long for me at this point. So that's why I'm saying, like, even if it was like, let's say like a 12 episode, 6 hour thing, I don't have faith in them to make the story better.
I mean, I think as an 8 episode limited series,
Okay.
we're getting really specific.
I went 12 episodes because I was like I was thinking 6 hours.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just imagining, you know, if the first episode kind of introduces you to the world of you, and you get to know this main character, but then, you know, each episode after could kind of be a day in the life of each of these characters, and you could spend more time making some kind of not assumptions, but, you know, guesses, predictions,
Yeah.
you know, about their relationship to each other and who could be the Beast, while you watch her pop career grow through the eyes of each of these people. You know, I don't know.
So you want to kind of like do rah it? Like
Yeah.
you see the same events happen from a bunch of different characters' perspectives?
Yeah, I would like to see that.
I still...
I just feel like there's so much of this that was underdone.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to see more of it. So I think they either need to pull back on some of this stuff and explore some things a bit more deeply, or they need to expand all of it and go into all of it.
I think that they could have told the story better in the same amount of time in the movie, but just take out certain parts and add in, like take out the Ruka and kayak guy relationship, put in another scene of the Beast wrecking shit. Like vilify him more.
Absolutely.
Take out like some of those like flashbacks with Suzu, put in
More of her pop career.
more of her pop career, more of like, we just needed
Yeah.
more of our main characters as opposed to like these side characters that don't have any effect on the main plot.
Yeah, and you know, I like that you were predicting that these other characters, you know, might be the Beast. The only person I ever thought might be the Beast was Shinobu, because it was her love interest outside of you, and then becoming her love interest inside of you, but then later, oh wait, no, not the love interest, and this has gotten weird. You know, and so those other characters, like for me, like just had no purpose. And I guess Kayak Guy is kind of some comedic relief, or is supposed to be. And then I feel like Ruka could have been such a throwaway, but I mean, they do this thing where, you know, Ruka ends up having this problem, and then, which is that she likes Kayak Guy and doesn't know how to tell him, and for some reason goes to Suzu for advice, when, the only sort of thing that shows that they're friends at all is that Ruka tells her to come over and be in the picture with her when they do this like a group picture.
Yeah, I didn't even know that Ruka and Suzu were friends.
No, and they could have done that much earlier too. Again, building up a little bit more of these characters' relationship to each other rather than kind of doing it all at the end right before some things happened, which again makes me feel like this didn't have a script to begin with. Because sometimes things are just kind of happening and they figure out a way to kind of build something out of that, but then that kind of goes nowhere. So yeah, my only like last thoughts on that is either it's an unconventional way of trying to make it feel more like real life and less like a movie because it's not as connected. And, just because this story is happening doesn't mean the people that are already connected to this person happen to be part of the story. Or it's just not a very good storytelling.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. Like, I thought that. So I thought at the beginning, like you, that Shinobu was going to be the beast because it would make sense because that's the love interest in the real world. But then it made too much sense with him being like, I'll protect you, I'm your protector. To me, for him to end up being Justin, because Justin is like the protector of the you, and then the beast, because that's the whole thing about Gaston is like, why would she love you, a beast like you, when she could be with somebody like me? But it's
so
really
good. He should have been Justin. That would have been really, really good. Even if the beast was still some random kid somewhere.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have that sort of misunderstanding to build up the stakes a little bit more, but make it feel more connected to her.
Yeah, because the whole point of Gaston is like, he's the actual beast. Like the beast is like the prince and like he's just, going through some shit. And like he's a loner, which is why I was like, the kayak guy is a loner. They made such a point to be like, he's the only guy in the kayak club and he wants people to be with him and he's always training. He's this nationally recognized superstar kayak guy. In the beast is this recognized MMA guy. So that's where I thought like the misdirect was going to be, like, because you would think that the guy that Suzu has a crush on would be the guy that she has a crush on in but it's not. He's the protector and he like just has this too intense sense of justice that he like is actually like evil, where the beast is the victim and he's the loner guy, and that's like the kayak guy who's actually like, I just want friends, or I just want somebody to like recognize and join my kayak club or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when they don't unveil Justin, like Justin just turned out to be no one except for just whatever. He's the guardian of the U
with a bunch of sponsorship, but we don't explain how other people have sponsorship. There's
yeah, no
no
one else.
sponsors that go up to Belle and try and get her to sell out.
Yeah, she's a super pop star. Like, why isn't anyone trying to sponsor her? He's the only one we see with sponsorships, and he has like a team of like superhero protectors and shit. And that's how I feel about it.
I don't know what to give this though. And is there anything else that you want to mention or talk about?
I think that we pretty much covered everything that I wanted to bring up. I think it's cranking the amp time.
Yeah.
You want to go first or should I go first?
I want you to go first.
I'm going to give it a 6 out of 11. 6.5 out of 11. Like at the very beginning of this podcast, that intro song writes a check that the rest of the movie can't cash. Like that song is so good. But yeah, I mean, it's just got a lot of problems. There's a lot of random things. I wish it would have been better connected. I think, and I mean, not to fucking toot my own horn here, but I think the movie that I came up with about this movie was better than what we got. It's just like a weird Matrix love story with child abuse.
But it's not a love story.
But it's not a love story at all. I think that this is a swing and a miss in the Hosoda thing. I think that he did it better in Summer Wars. Like Summer Wars is one of my favorite anime movies I've ever seen. I even think that the animation...
That movie's so tight.
I think that the animation is better in Summer Wars too. Like, I don't necessarily like the CG 3D type of stuff that he employed this time around in the virtual world. I think it looked better in Summer Wars. But a lot of people compared the Digimon movie to Summer Wars. I think that a lot of people are going to compare this to Summer Wars. And I think all of the people that are really giving this a positive review, I feel like they just didn't see Summer Wars. Because if you see how well he did that movie as compared to this is a big step down in my opinion. So yeah, we talked for a while about all the things that we didn't like and all the things that we didn't think make sense. So yeah, a 6.5 out of 11 because there were still some cool things.
Yeah, I was kind of swinging between 6 and 7, and I'm thinking I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay.
And part of that is because I agree with so much of what you said, but I also think that the animation in this was absolutely stunning, just incredible. As part of that U world and some of the stuff that you didn't like, I loved, and I just thought was so beautiful. And kind of Hosoda stepping out of his kind of comfort zone. I mean, obviously not far enough out that he's out of virtual world yet, but enough that he's adding some of that flair and some of that sparkle and some of that high res desktop background, kind of stuff that is so cool to go and see in a theater up on a screen. There's some stuff that I was like, this should be seen on a big screen. Where there's some other, his other films, not a lot of it is this needs to be a theatrical experience,
I think I might bump it up to sorry to interrupt you, but I think I might bump it up to a 7 just for the fact that I've never seen an anime musical either. That's kind of, we haven't really talked about, have we seen any anime musicals before?
I can't remember. But yeah, it is pretty uncommon for animes.
Yeah. So that, the boldness of trying that, I think I got to give him at least another half a point just because we haven't seen it before. And it's something that, as far as I know, hasn't been done.
I like to think that as I continue to explain my score, your score is going to go up by...
This is 11 out of 11.
Yeah, hold on. Just stop for a second. Actually, there's another thing that I wanted to mention, and it's really going to bump me up to a 7.5 now that I think of it. I'm like, Joe, your time to give your score is over.
2 hours later, it becomes a 4-hour podcast. Well, you know what? I think it came around and it's an 11 out of 11.
Oh man, there was something on the tip of my brain, and I
ruined it. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I think one thing that could have made this film a higher score for me. There's so many little things that could have done it. It is making leaning more into that musical thing and having those fun pop moments, letting that sit for a while. Would have made this better if there was some kind of a ticking clock on trying to find the beast. I guess they kind of built it in he's gonna get more bruises. So he's clearly been surviving that so far, and yeah, less trauma would be great. But it'd be nice if there were a few more callbacks to the original Beauty and the Beast, to have that rose underneath the glass thing. And no, not every story has to be a love story, but then why put in the crush on Shinobu and Ruka's crush on kayak guy whose name I can't remember. Kamishin. Why put that in? Why have the dancing and the moments? I guess they are still connecting, and maybe it's he's Hosoda specifically being look, I'm misdirecting that this is beating the beast, because actually they're not in love, and actually she's saving a stranger and giving up her career that has barely built up in order to save him. There are so many ways. There are so many ways that it could have been better, and I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I want more from this that I'll never get.
Yep.
So I'm giving it a 7.
All right. Well, this has been our review of Belle. The new Mamoru Hosoda movie. Kind of ended on a wet fart there. I mean, so does this movie. So yeah, thanks for listening. Subscribe. We're gonna start doing some more episodes again. We got the YouTube channel. We've got Apple Podcasts if you want to write in. The Anime Movie Podcast at gmail.com. The Anime Movie Podcast on Instagram. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at the Anime Movie Podcast at gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.